So going to take this opportunity to go ahead and hand it over and let our speakers quickly introduce themselves. Yurabna, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you so much, Alec. Hi, everyone. My name is Irabna Nyanyi Akofo, and currently the country director for Water Aid in Ghana. It's a pleasure to be on this platform and to share and learn from you all. Thank you. I'll pass it to Josh.
Thank you, Rabna and Alec. And yeah, thanks for all for having me here today. And yeah, so my name's Josh Newton, and I am the founder of Josh's Water Jobs, website that tries to help people get jobs in the water and wash sectors. And then I'm as well a freelancer that works with global water governance and yeah, global political processes. Thanks.
We're so honored to have you both with us today, and we're going to jump right in. Yurabna, I'm going to tap on you first and ask you if you can tell us what have you found to be the most impressive quality in someone that you've interviewed, whether it's for a
Hmm.
job or even an internship.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Where do I start from? So the first thing that we all should know and be aware of is that when it comes to your skills, your experience, or your education, we know it because you share that through your CV. But during an interview, the focus of a panel is mainly trying to understand, you know, is trying to understand or have conversation with a person to understand their attitudes, their mindset, their problem solving skills. And so I really enjoy listening to people who are able to use their life experiences to tell their story. Interviewers want to understand, how you will behave or how you would address issues in real life situations. And so whether you are being asked about how well do you fit, how well does your skills and the job match, or you are being asked about tell us an experience or how do you understand this, or what interviewers want to hear from you is more about the real life experiences, and don't shy away from telling the challenges that you have experienced and how you solved it or how you learned from it, even if you fail, because that then help people to appreciate, that you have the ability to solve problems, because we are here to solve problems. Every job is designed to, function by solving problems and making things happen. And in our job, we have challenges, we experience failures, we experience successes. So for every question that you are asked, I am personally looking for how is this person able to share their real life experience and how they address problems, how they overcame challenges, how they collaborated with other people. Another thing that I also look out for is the passion. How is this person adaptable? What is the long-term commitment, potential long-term commitment we are going to get from a candidate? And so you would want to come to that interview not thinking that, okay, I have skills in M&E or I have skills in HR or I have skills, but then you should be able to demonstrate, okay, how am I able to adapt myself? How am I able to bring my skills in M&E to do this job? I have an M&E and program quality background. I interviewed for my current role as the country director. I am not an expert in WASH, but it's my ability to demonstrate that I am able to bring those M&E and program quality skills that I have to manage a country program. So that makes you successful. I encourage people to study the job descriptions very well. And for each competency area, essential or desired skills that have been listed, try and reflect on where in my journey do I have practical experience in demonstrating this competency. What challenge did I face? How did I solve it? And be ready to share those stories during your interview. Thank you.
I love it. So real world experience mixed with honesty and passion is what really makes candidates stand out for you. And I'm sure for many other hiring managers as well. Great. I'm going to switch to Josh now. Josh, you have talked about the limited number of entry-level positions in the water and wash sectors more broadly. What are 2 tips that you would suggest for someone who's just starting out? Do they need to start in this sector if they're struggling to find the right entry-level job?
Okay, thanks, Alec. So the best piece of advice I ever got when I was a young professional, still studying, was those who move create their own luck. Getting a job is all about putting yourself out there, sometimes in uncomfortable situations. I'm an introvert myself, so networking doesn't come naturally to me. But really putting yourself out there, having no fear about approaching anybody to ask for career advice, to ask for information about an organization or a position or a type of work. So really just putting yourself out there, and that you create luck that way. So that's one side of it. And then the other is, or another suggestion is just really researching, having done your research on the organization that you're applying for, knowing what they do, what their mission is, their values, know who the person is you're talking to. So you come super prepared for an interview, for when you're applying for a job, to be able to really delve in deep and ask good questions about what that organization does, what your job will entail, reporting lines, and things like that. So it's just being putting yourself out there and being well prepared. Already you're ahead of the game of many other candidates if you're doing that.
Thanks, Josh. I'm seeing kind of a connection between yours and Yarabna's answers, especially about being prepared and knowing a lot about the organization and the people, the team or panel that you're interviewing with. That really does set you apart from candidates who come in not knowing those things. I'm going to
Yeah.
now popcorn to a
And
question for both of you. Sorry.
yeah, and Alec, if I may add, for people to appreciate the perspective that they are looking at us, entry level. At the entry level, there are fewer positions, but there are a lot more candidates. There are a lot more people who have the entry level requirement. But then as you climb high, there are limited positions and also limited number of people. And so really at the entry level, you really have to stand out. It's very competitive. People should not take anything for granted. And you should think about, if you're applying for a job, you think, okay, this job I'm applying, there's potentially 500 to 1,000 people applying. So what is going to set me apart, and make me different from the other person?
Agreed. Okay, so we're going to go to a question for both of you. I think, Josh, I'll ask you first, and then we can go to Yarabna next. What tips do you have for those who are early in their careers and have either only educational degrees or education with some internships and volunteering positions? How can we make those people more valuable to people making hiring decisions?
Well, it's all about showing whatever skills that you've gained through educational experiences, your internships, volunteering. It came up in the session last night about even like waiting tables. It's really showing what skills you have and how they transfer to the job you are applying for. Because many skills you wouldn't think about in other jobs directly do apply. Communication, diplomacy, writing, um, working in a multicultural environment. So many of these things actually you do in many types of jobs. And so it's really about communicating that you have experience with that. Having confidence in when you are communicating as well, that goes a long way. Confidence without arrogance. Um, and yeah, and sometimes looking for the perfect job, it can take a really, really long time. I know in many of my own experience and with colleagues and friends, often, that first job most likely isn't going to be the perfect job. Sometimes people get really lucky with that, but it's more about getting that first job and your foot in the door and then making horizontal, vertical, lateral movements. Eventually you'll get to where you want to be. But no matter what job you're in, you're going to be getting value experience, even in an internship. So it's then how do you translate that and communicate that when you're applying for the jobs?
Yeah. Yeah, so I will focus on how I have seen interns behave in the workspace, So, usually internship and volunteerism is not something that organizations really plan for. Sometimes you get an internship opportunity because through your network, you are recommended for an internship, or maybe through the university, a letter is submitted on your behalf to have an internship experience. And a lot of the time, when people come in as interns, they don't have job descriptions or, titles. It's just intern. I have seen interns that come in, or people that come in to volunteer for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and really at the end of the day, you interact with them and they don't have much to say. And so this is what I will encourage us to do, when you are interning and you really want to make sure that you are documenting what you are doing well and you're able to use it to advertise yourself in the future. Please, when you go and there is no JD, understand the work environment, understand what you are doing, explore, as just saying, ask questions and see which areas am I good at or am I going to excel at, and draft your own job description, even if the organization hasn't drafted one for you. Engage whoever has been assigned to manage you and said, okay, look, you haven't given me any job description, but based on my induction and my engagement with other people, this is what I think I can do during this time of internship. And any task you are able to accomplish, whether you're able to successfully accomplish it or you're able to partially accomplish it or you feel, document them. And at the end of the day, even if the organization doesn't ask you for a performance assessment, you can put together a performance assessment for them. First of all, you've been able to couch a title for yourself, especially for the long internship. Even for the short internships, try and figure out what specific thing I can do that I can put on my CV as an achievement. Sometimes these things are not given to you. You have to figure it out and work at it yourself so that by the time you are done, you can clearly communicate confidently. This is what I have done, this is what I have achieved, and you can put it on your CV. A lot of the time, we don't pay attention to these details. And so we go through an internship, and especially when you are not line managed well, you come out with nothing and you are not able to use it to sell yourself. And so I will encourage us to really take leadership of the process, have a clear vision, take leadership of the process and see yourself, documenting these things so that you can clearly articulate it at the end of the day.
I love that, Yarebna. I think being proactive, especially when you're in junior positions, networking with people within the organization and figuring out what solutions you might have for problems they're facing is a great way to show your value and kind of your strategic value to the organization. And you can take that forward into other roles as well. All right, so we're going to turn it to the audience now. We're going to have a poll starting in just a minute. So if these are actually based on questions that audience members submitted when you registered, we are going to have you select which questions you most want answered, and we will go in order of popularity. So you should be seeing poll 2 coming up on your screen. And there's various options. So please start voting for which of these most interests you. We'll give a few minutes or like 30 seconds for this. Pallavi, I think you can stop sharing your screen for now. Thanks. Keep voting. We'll give you a few more seconds. Seeing a clear winner, but you could still tip the scales. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, but I will let you all see the results. So it looks like first up, the question that is most interesting is, I work in another sector, refugee response, civil engineering, software engineer, as examples. How can I transition to work on water resources and WASH? Josh, do you want to take this from the water resources perspective, and then we'll ask Yorabna about WASH?
Sure. I'm not sure they would have too much of a different answer, but it's very similar to what I was saying before about, people make these shifts all the time. They obviously, become interested in making a move over to something new because they've maybe had a little bit of experience with it. And it's about taking those skills that you have in your old job, your old sector, and showing how they translate into, say, water resources management or WASH or whatever sector that is. And when researching the sector, seeing what the current state of knowledge is, who are the people involved in whatever geographic scope you're talking, global, regional, national, local, who are those people reaching out, asking for advice to people, really focusing on tailoring your CV to the sector. Again, translating the skills you have and how they apply to the new sector that you've now researched and see how those skills can apply. And actively network. That's how you become familiar. Really, it's about having people become familiar with you, putting yourself out there, putting your face out there, having them know that you're eager to join and motivated and being proactive in doing so and not just applying to jobs. I think that's what is gonna, as we've mentioned before, everybody here is like standing out from the masses and being proactive really does make a difference. Having, gone through application processes before myself, like those people who make efforts, the extra effort and to communicate, it really makes a difference versus those who don't.
Yeah, thank you very much, Josh. This is what I will also add to it. When you talk about refugee response, it has so many aspects, Is it even for refugee response, there is WASH in it as well. There is how do you call it, giving food, food distribution, and sometimes even giving resources for people to start economic activities. And when you look at in that sector, there you could be doing WASH, you could be doing agriculture, you could be doing conflict management, you could be doing gender, you could be doing monitoring and evaluation, partnership. These are skills that you can easily transfer from one sector to the other. And so, yes, you are doing it within the refugee setting, but it is possible to, don't look at it as wash, because there is, when you come to every field, one of the critical things we are looking for when it comes to programming is project management, policy influencing, and those things cut across different sectors. If you are looking at civil engineering, for WASH, our engineering mainly focuses on the infrastructure, so be it a water system, and there are different types of water systems. So I know it comes with the hydrogeology, among other things, the geomorphology and all of those things, but bill of quantities, understanding all of that. So the skills in engineering can easily be applied to those construction. But the other thing that we do in the WASH sector is also the service modeling. So it's not just about the infrastructure, but then looking at how do we model operations and maintenance around that. And that really comes with the ability to research and understand system strengthening, engaging with partners to model something that works for the community. And those are skills that you can pick from any, the collaboration, engage in partnership, community-led, development approaches. Those are not cut in a particular field. We also talk about software. When it is software, M&E in WASH, we use a lot of software. Our hygiene behavior campaign uses a lot of software, whether it is visual presentation of data, whether it is using some form of software to drive hygiene behavior change, or to do data collection, showing maps of where facilities are, where there are gaps. And so WASH is such that wherever you are coming from, you will be able to apply yourself to it, because it's not, I don't know how to say it. You know, we are so multifaceted that within the program, there are so many aspects that you can apply yourself to and not be limited. And so, as Josh said, looking at your JD, understanding what you are doing, and being able to demonstrate your adaptability, you know, applying from one place to the other is very, very, and how you articulate yourself clearly around those is very important.
I'm seeing similarities also with another question that got upvoted quite a bit. So I'm not going to have you both address it again, but just to clarify again for everyone here, you can pivot careers. You don't have to stay in one siloed area. It's all about knowing what your skill sets are and being able to competently and confidently communicate those through your application process and in your interviews. So I hope that that's coming across clear to you all. You do not have to stay in one area. If you want to pivot, it's entirely possible. Another question that I think is really interesting, and Yorabna, I think you should take this first. What key aspects do you think hinder professional development and career growth, specifically in Africa?
Oh, specifically in Africa, that's an interesting question.
Or maybe talk about Ghana, since that's your context.
I mean, I think generally the things that hinders our ability to progress in our career is if we choose to become passive and we choose to stay unaware of what is happening around us. One popular phrase or quote I learned is that about, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I apply it everywhere, is that diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being invited to dance, and empowerment is where you have the opportunity to choose your own music to dance to, right? Many of us will have the opportunity to be included, but if you are included in an organization, don't wait to be invited to dance. You know, get up and dance. Understand, first of all, understand your job description, you know, and own it. Where you know you have capacity gaps in certain competencies, build on it. And I'll use my own self as a case study. Every job I started with, I started my career in the INGO with Oxfam. From my very first day that I was filling my performance plan, and the question that was asked, in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you see yourself? I reflected deeply on it. I identified positions that I thought that in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to see myself here. I understood those positions. I understood the competencies that were required for those positions to excel. And I began to behave as if I was occupying those positions, you know. And every work that I did it with that, you know, if I'm in this position and I was, you know, doing this, how will I do it? How will I contribute? And I got engaged with those positions, and I did my best to go the extra mile, and sometimes to do more for them to know that this is something I'm interested in. This is something I want to learn more about. And so don't be passive, be self-aware, understand what you want, invite yourself to the dance floor, and then suggest that you can bring a music, or you can even sing and be involved, because people who get things done get noticed. Most people in organizations give excuses. From my experience, most people I've met in my working experience, most people tend to give excuses why something cannot be done. The people who don't focus on the excuses why something cannot be done, but focus, okay, what's the solution? How do we get over this? They get noticed and they are invited to the table. And so don't wait to be included or be empowered. Empower yourself. Know who you are and empower yourself, because that is how you get there. Thank you.
Josh, I don't know if you want to add to that, or I can actually pivot you to a different question, which actually had more upvotes than I missed earlier. It's how do you know whether or when it's time to change the scope of work or change the work itself, i.e. to change your employer? When do you get out?
By the way, Ravana, that was an amazing response. So I definitely don't have anything to add to that. Yeah, so pivoting. So in many ways, I'm in the process of doing that right now because I've been for a long time, freelancing around the world, doing different things with global water governance, which I've loved. But it came to a moment where I think a few things have happened. I got a little burned out with what I was doing. I stopped learning in the job. I stopped being challenged in the various things I was doing. And so I'm in the process, as many of you know, pivoting to try to make the website my full-time endeavor, which is taking a long time. But the reasons I mentioned that I'm doing the pivot, and there are many more, and it's a very personal threshold that one reaches and it can be many different things. It can be you're starting a family. It could be that you want to move geographically. It could be that you feel like you can't move any higher. There's no promotion possibilities, so you want to look for those opportunities. So there's many different factors and reasons why you should pivot, but it's a very personal threshold that you reach, and then it becomes very clear that okay, yes, it's time to move on, either within the organization in terms of what you're doing, or to another organization doing something different.
Thank you both for those excellent insights. We are going to turn up the interactivity once more and get to some live questions from everyone here in the audience. So for the next 30 seconds, if everyone can go ahead and ask your questions in the chat. I've been seeing questions coming in, so I hope you all are upvoting those, liking or giving them hearts so that we know that they're popular. This will give us the opportunity to make sure that we also answer questions live, and not just those that were submitted during pre-registration. So go ahead and enter your questions now. We'll give you a little bit of time to do that. And Yorabna can show us you're dancing your way out of the session today because you don't wait to be asked to dance. I love it. That was a great takeaway from this session for me. People are agreeing, indeed. Raise your hand in the chat if you've ever danced at work. And how was that for you? All right, 10 more seconds to get those questions answered. We have a great IT team here that is going to be moving those over so that they are prioritized from me. You can continue doing that. And I'm going to turn us now to what has been submitted. Forgive me for looking down because I'm using a split screen. So the first question is about women and women's participation. How to address women's participation in highly conservative communities where women are not allowed to meet strangers. How can they effectively network for new job opportunities? Yorabna, I think that makes sense for you to answer first.
I was answering one of the questions in the chat box. Say that again, sorry.
How to address women's participation in highly conservative communities where they're not allowed or able to meet strangers. So how do women in conservative communities network for new job opportunities?
Where they are not allowed to meet strangers. So That is a difficult one. I think that you should start with a women's group. You should start with the females that you see around you, especially in situations where being seen with a male can be construed negatively. So start with small women's group. If it doesn't exist, form one. Encourage one so that there can be some peer learning and support mechanisms there. But also don't see networking as the only ways and means in getting a job. Let me use myself as an example here. So in October 2021, the program I was working with ended. At that time, I told myself that I'll give myself, 1 or 2 months, I should find my next job. But unfortunately, it took me 11 months. Now, in between that, I did so many things, including I applied for more than 500 jobs. And that was because I was just applying. I was doing an average 5 to 10 jobs, application a day, irrespective of whichever location I found. And sometimes I only applied, even though I knew that I'm not eligible to work in the country. I only applied because I wanted to see what kind of questions are they asking? What kind of competencies are they interested in this? And not through any network, I use my network to volunteer, but not through any just applying. I finally got a job. So don't only focus on network, look at what are other means, of getting out there and demonstrating your skills. Don't be limited to that. So yeah, I would say look beyond networking to see if there are other means of getting a job. Yeah.
Josh, do you want to answer that? Maybe not necessarily from women's perspective, but from those who are in more rural or far-reaching areas that don't have the same opportunities.
Yeah, and it would be similar, I think, in that, if it's prohibited to meet in public, then we have technology now that can help kind of go beyond that. So there's a lot of virtual networking so it wouldn't be, say, the people in the community necessarily, but you can find peers, other people who are working in similar areas in different parts of the world, maybe within the same country, maybe in the same region. So then there are online opportunities to interact and engage with other professionals where you can network. So I think that's something that, say, didn't exist 20 years ago that now we have more opportunity, just like this webinar itself is an example of.
So I know neither of you would call yourselves WASH experts, but the next question is WASH specific. If you can take it from your point of view. And Josh, I'll start with you. How do I navigate a career in WASH, and what are the various areas of specialization?
Well, Yorabina probably could reply to that a little bit better because she works for a WASH organization. But yeah, it is all about researching the sector, finding out what type of work is being done. I think Yorabina mentioned it earlier that there's all sorts of skills are needed for WASH. It's just not civil engineering. You need social scientists, you need economists, you need people who focus on governance, public health. The list is endless. So it's just about seeing geographically where you'd like to be, and then looking at where your skill set could apply to some of the projects and what the organizations are doing. But yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Robin.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. In addition to that, depending on where you want to go, of course, there's the government sector, there is the NGOs, there is also the private, there is, who do consultancies or for profits in the sector. There are vendors that we work with, those who do the construction, or I'll say construction companies. And anybody can fit anywhere. It is not limited. In my organization, we have finance and people with finance and account background. We have HR, we have procurement, we have admin people. Then we have the engineers. We have people with policy background. We have people who did development planning, not necessarily a program or a university degree called WASH, but development studies, development plan. We have people with geography background. It's wide. So, and we did, in terms of the framework, in terms of how the different job areas that we have partnership, we have safeguarding, we have the legal, because you have to do with HR issues. We have program, project management, monitoring, evaluation, accountability, learning specialist, knowledge management specialist. Now with WASH and climate change, we are getting a lot of climate change experts also coming into the field to help us figure out how do we have more climate resilient WASH. There is the gender. It is wide. It is really, really wide. And if you go to any job search engine, you'll see how wide the opportunities are, or even look at different NGOs that have WASH as one of their program focus. You go to their career web pages, you see the variety of different functions that they are looking for.
Thank you both. And I guess to add to that, not only going to organizations, but also consulting. There are a lot of WASH organizations that need consultants for various functions that you've both addressed, like monitoring and evaluation, maybe an advocacy campaign. So those are avenues as well for participants to explore for getting into WASH. All right, I have time for one question. I think it would be best if you choose between yourselves, one of you, to answer it. And it's an interesting one. So with the current movement advocating for more females to take up roles within the water and WASH professions, do you think males are being disadvantaged in terms of employment opportunities by an unfair margin? I mean,
Alex, should I
Ramna, maybe you could talk a little bit about what
Yeah, I mean,
like what does the
there's-
landscape actually look like in terms of
I mean,
utilities?
so yeah, I guess speaking from a male perspective, and you're having had more of the organizational perspective, because she deals with this probably on a day-to-day basis. But I don't see that happening. And I think it's just I just think it's fair. I think there, when you look at UNICEF did a study a few years ago where they looked at all the P5 level, which is a senior level person at UNICEF. There's, I think, 30 of those positions worldwide. 28 of them were held by men. And there's many, many qualified women out there, and how women apply for jobs is different than how men apply for jobs, but the systems are set up more for how men apply for jobs. So this is about leveling the playing field, to ensure that the best person gets the job, and it's not giving an advantage to women. It's just leveling the playing field so it's fair to everybody who's applying. And not just women, but minorities in cases as well. So I don't particularly see that in my own experience, but I'm not everywhere. But that's, yeah, speaking from my point of view.
Abner, I'm sure
Yeah.
you have additions, but let me transition us and add it to your final insights if you can, just so I can keep us on time.
Yeah, I totally agree with Josh. Nothing more to add.
Okay, perfect. That's great. So now we're going to move into the final part of our session with you both. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. I think we're getting lots of great feedback on your insights in the chat. I want to ask you each a final question. It's the same, and I'm going to give you 1 minute. If you can each take just 1 minute, we want to know, what is your final piece of advice for those seeking new careers in this sector and for those looking to shift within the sector? Rabna, why don't you go first?
I will say this, that irrespective of where you are, whether you are looking to shift or whether you are looking to start a career, I say start by understanding what you want, understanding what your vision is here. Where do I see myself next? and pay attention to the jobs that you select. And there's one thing I want to say, don't give up. It can be very disappointing and emotionally draining when you go through an application process or a recruitment process, thinking that you are there. Oh, this one, I feel very positive about it. And you receive the email that, oh, you were fantastic, but unfortunately, we have so many qualified candidates, and I know it can be depressing. But yes, when you receive those rejection, if you want to cry, cry, but then finish crying, wipe your tears, and keep on moving forward. You will finally get to the job that you desire and need. And also, don't shy away from volunteering. As much as possible, don't leave gaps in your CV. If it means working for free, work for free. These days, remote working is even encouraged. So even if it means volunteering remotely, you don't have to spend money, transport, take advantage of it and make sure that you don't have gaps in your CV and be positive.
Yeah, that's usually my last piece of advice as well, is just don't give up. We need you all working in this space. So persevere. To add something a little different is don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. So get your foot in the door, and it doesn't have to be the perfect job. I really like what Robin said about volunteering, interning. Just get experience where you can, because everything adds to your candidacy to positions. So just stick with it. Eventually, things work out. They usually always do. So stick with it. Get experience where you can. And yeah, and lean on this community. We're all very, it's all very open, kind, giving community. If you're going through tough times, like there's a lot of us out there who are more than willing to help you out. So lean on your peers.
Amazing. Thank you both. And adding my voice to the choir that we need you and please don't give up. That's why we're putting on Water and Wash Career Days. We need more talent in this sector, and we hope that you will join us and that today has inspired you and maybe even re inspired you if you're feeling a little down.